So, Joe and Karim, welcome to the very first Career Bites podcast. Who would have thought I was getting you along roped into another DYW initiative? But here we are, you're the podcast guinea pigs, and welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, just a kind of housekeeping, I think, to start. Just we'll do a wee introduction, if that's okay. So, obviously, I'm Scott. I work for Developing the Young Workforce Lanarkshire in Eastern Bartonshire. I'm one of the programme executives as part of the team. And obviously, with me today, we've got Joanne Kelly, or will we just say Joe for the...
Joe's fine.
No
Thank
worries,
you so much.
We'll stick to Joe for the purposes. Joe works for the Gas Certification Company. So, do you want to tell us what you do there, Joe?
So I am the Centre Manager of a Gas Renewables Training Centre based in Blantyre. And we're predominantly private sector. You know, we look after the engineers that need to come and renew their tickets and maybe want to add on to their career by getting more qualifications.
Mm-hmm. We've got someone from British Gas and Centrica here. So, Karim, tell us what you do in the business then.
I'm now the Regional Manager for Net Zero Community Engagement. So I'm responsible, the team's responsible for going out to local communities to talk to them about the products and the services, as well as the transition to net zero. A big part of what myself and the team do is going out to schools, whether it be career workshops or careers fairs, and that's just to talk to the young people about life after school. It doesn't necessarily need to be a university they go to. It's brilliant if they do, but it's just to let them see that we've got industries that we work in as well, that it's also a good place to be.
And I guess that's kind of how all our paths have collided. So we've obviously met before, and it's for some of us it's gone back maybe like a year and a bit, and Karim probably like a couple of years now, and both of you have kind of stepped up to the plate, and you're supporting our schools and our young people getting inspired in the industry, and I think that's probably where we want to try and take this discussion to start with. So Karim, what made you reach out to DYW initially to get involved with us in developing the young workforce?
So my boss at the time was part of DYW Maury, so he was already part of that group. He spoke to him about it, and then because you've got the beauty of social media, I googled just in advance to see roughly what it was about.
Good things.
All good things, Scott, yeah. And I think for me, the bit that stood out, you're probably the same thing age-wise here, is we didn't get this at school. I think it's brilliant what DYW offer the schools across Lanarkshire and Eastern Bartonshire. I'm proud of where I've got to, but if I'd had this at that age of the young people we're speaking to now, maybe my life, maybe you'd be the same, maybe our lives, our careers would have been different.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess, what about you, Joe, then? What were you thinking about in terms of the centre and starting with a bit of a partnership with DYW?
Yeah, it's along the same lines. I'm quite fortunate where my career path has taken me from what I wanted to be at school to where I am now. From school, there wasn't much support. Yeah, you had careers advice, you had careers events, but it was just, this is what it is, and you just pick one. It wasn't what are you good at, what can we harness, you know, to support you, to see you through to a career that's suitable for you, rather than, this is what girls do and this is what boys do. That's what it very much was like when we were at school. And the sad part is, when I was at high school, I very much wanted to go into sports development, sports coaching and things like that. I wanted to get more females into football and things, and it was very difficult for me at school to find a female football club. You know, there was other things, but again, it was very much, you know, boys do this, girls do that. So when I went into 6th year, I had a couple of hires. I thought, right, I'll go back and do another couple of hires just so that I can maybe help my career, maybe if I need to change, if I can't get into sports coaching. And one of the free periods that we had, we were sitting in what we call the crush area. There was a couple of us sitting. Now you're talking about, we're 17 at the time at this point. And one of I think it was the deputy head at the time, had come in, and you could see he was quite angry, like we were sitting here doing nothing. And he went round each of us and said, right, what hires are you doing? What hires are you doing? Got to me and I said, I'm just doing 2 more to kind of boost my hires. I got a few last year. And his answer was, take more hires or leave. So what did I do? I left. And I went to college and I did leisure and recreation. I did sports coaching, sports development, got my qualifications. But then at the end of that, I didn't have experience. You can't get work within that industry without experience. You can't get experience without a job. They expected you to volunteer. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, right, I need a job. You know, I need something. I started in McDonald's. In college, I got my pool lifeguard, so I worked in a sports centre for a while. Got a little bit of experience with coaching and things. But again, they were only casual work. They were only part-time, so I thought I need to find something else. And lo and behold, that's where I then got a job with Scottish Gas, just working in the office, you know, just kind of helping with admin and things like that, thinking I'll still go back to sports, I'll still kind of follow my career path that I want to do, but just the way life goes, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And they then advertised that they were doing an apprenticeship for engineers, but more specifically, they wanted females.
Focused on girls.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so I thought I'll apply, see where I go, see how far I get, and yep, I got an apprenticeship, managed to become a gas engineer and worked with them right up until 3 years ago.
Amazing.
When I then left and wanted to be a trainer assessor. So I wanted to then go down the path of still coaching people. And it just so happens it's not in the sports industry, it's now in the gas and renewables industry. So it's not a very fancy kind of career path, but it's where it's
there
led
is
me.
there's
Yeah.
obviously a
Really is.
link and a motivation I want and I need to maybe give something back and coach within the kind of centre. And it kind of resonates a little bit with us with, you know, an activity that DYW supports and gets behind every year. And every August round about exam, the exam sort of timetable, when everyone's getting the results, we run a programme called No Wrong Path. So this is obviously to support young people where they are maybe thinking about going down a certain route or a certain path. It could be university, college or whatever, and they don't quite get the results that they perhaps were maybe hoping for and needing. But that actual story that you've just kind of said absolutely resonates there, because you've started off in one journey thinking it's going to be sports coaching for you. And, you know, if you fast forward 5 years from when you left school to now, Joe,
I love how you said 5.
but there's obviously a huge amount of opportunity for girls in sport, football, all that type of thing. And it's I guess the world's sort of changing, but for us with No Wrong Path, it's really important to reinforce that, you know, like your life is not decided just on that 1 week of results. It's really important to say you can be anything you want to be if you set your mind to it. And then obviously, you know, for your point of view, you've still got into sort of coaching and training as part of that. So what about yourself, Karim? What would you tell your 16-year-old self when you were leaving school now? What would you say?
Oh God, that's a tough. Focus, grow up. Probably, I think I was really immature. Wasn't academic at school. Politely got asked to leave in 5th year. Just I didn't have any interest at that point anyway. So I think I took, whether it's right or wrong, I did take 6 weeks because I thought, see, when you're in school, you get 6 weeks summer holiday. I just thought you were entitled to that, whatever age you were. So I was like 17. I still took my 6 weeks. Then my mum said, no, I'll not say that on the podcast though. My mum politely said to me, go and get a job or go to college. And it was either, I got the acceptance letter in for college because I was going to become a paralegal at the time. I did like law. Got an interview with Scottish Gas. I still remember getting in and the person interviewing me saying, this will be temps, we don't have permanent staff anymore. You might get a year and a half. That suited me at the time because I was still a teenager. Wasn't interested in that, but then I kind of worked my way through. So I worked in planning and dispatch. So that was August 99 I started. Got my contract November 2000. Obviously 26 years later I'm still there, albeit a different capacity.
Yeah.
But,
and that's the thing, I'm assuming your paths must have crossed within the Scottish Gas, British Gas, yeah.
I think there was much between, I was, what you produced, I was 99.
98, yeah.
You before, right, I was going to say, yeah. The two of us kind of worked
within
in
the kind of same 12 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the office is, well, it holds 900. It is really big, but Joe was probably right up the back corner. I was in the middle of the back city, like that area.
Yeah,
What was your field activities?
Field activities. So we actually did kind of liaise with Karim's department quite a bit. We were back and forth because you were what we called UCAD at the time, which kind of looked after the engineers and the jobs that they were booked in for, and make sure that the jobs go out and they were getting the jobs that was relevant to them and in their kind of geographical area. Whereas where I was working, field activities was the actual jobs being booked themselves, depending on what was required, whether it be landlord's gas inspections or services and things like that, or if parts were required and things. So we did that's how we got talking, wasn't it? Because we did liaise with each other quite a bit at that point in time.
And I think that this is the most amazing part for me. I guess you can say that you're still attached to the industry that you came into almost, and built your career behind, and that's like 25, 26 years later for you both, which sounds a long time, but I suspect it's probably flown by for both of you.
Certainly has, yeah.
But that's the one thing about this industry that I guess you guys are both attached to. It's probably changed fundamentally from where it was round about the millennium time to where it is now. So what's the biggest changes that you've seen within the industry potentially from that time to where we're at now?
I would say the apps. When we started, Joe would have been the same. It was landline phones that you had when you answered the phone. I remember them coming in with the mobile, but they were bigger mobiles, if you know what engineers had at the time.
Motorola ones, Motorola, yeah.
There was no WhatsApp, there was no social media, there was no apps. If you phoned through to the contact centre,
it was still paper, wasn't it?
Yeah,
everything was written down.
Everything was all manual. God, I forgot about that. Yep, everything was all manual as well. That's right. For me, I'd say that's the biggest part of where I would have seen it when I worked in the office, and I think now, for me, it's just thinking that it's moving to the next stage, which is net zero, which is something 25, 26 years ago we would never have spoke about gas not being here, because gas was always, well, it was a gas board essentially.
Job for life,
so
all that kind of thing.
I think that there's now a future, a different part for the next generation of people that are going to be homeowners as well. When you look at what they need, I find that amazing, but I would have said the kind of mobile and app technology, when you look at where we were at 99, 2000 to now. I never did internet, never Google, and it always, you phone somebody, everything was paper. So if you were phoned into the contact centre and it was a query about where's the engineer, you can track everything online now. Literally, the person answering the phone wrote it in a bit of paper, and there was a team that used to collect the sheets of paper and then bring them over to
actual runners.
Over to UCAD, and then we would get the bit of paper, check it, and then phone the customer.
Mailroom buddy with a trolley.
More or less, yeah.
Basically, yeah.
And what about you? What have you seen that's been a fundamental kind of groundbreaking change for you, Joe, in the industry from when you've joined to where you are now?
To be honest, I wouldn't think there's anything groundbreaking as such. I've seen a shift, certainly, a shift in how businesses operate, how businesses run. Like what you're saying with loyalty and things like that. I have noticed, I think when it comes to businesses organically being part of Britain or part of Scotland and whatever, and then you kind of get outsiders that come in. The changes are external, aren't they? It's external influences rather than internal. So I don't think there's been much difference in it. Certainly, gas is gas. It'll always be. Back when we started, British Gas was basically gas, and then you had Scottish Power for the power. You go to the gas board, you go to the electricity board, but now we've all amalgamated into one.
It's interlinked, I guess, providing energy for.
And then when you think about renewables, renewables has always really kind of been there, but it's just not been concentrated on. Because I remember being at high school and we were talking about climate change, back as far as even, the early stages of primary school, in the 80s, talking about climate change and how we need to be aware of things like that. Now at school, it's climate crisis.
course.
because we're in crisis now.
They've shifted
So,
the gear to focus where
that's
where,
it.
where
So,
we're moving towards.
yeah, it was maybe spoken about years ago, but now it's like, no, we need to actually physically do something now. And I think that's why the concentration on it is a bit more. But what's disappointing for me is it's not really discussed in schools. You're kind of net zero and your renewables as such, especially when I've been kind of doing the events at the colleges, when we've gone out and doing the wee kind of workshops, and I do the kind of safety awareness for gas and carbon monoxide and things, and then I talk to some of the kids about sustainability and renewable things, and lots of the kids don't really understand what it is. They know about solar panels, they know about wind turbines, very few know about the hydro, and it perplexes me that the schools aren't
not focusing on
this
it
as
enough.
such. Yeah. So I think that the change that I feel from my side of things, like a different part of the business where we're training and we're seeing that there's a skills gap developing.
Yeah.
You know, and the skills gap's getting bigger because gas engineers, the average gas engineer now is about 55. You know, and they're coming up to retirement age if they want to. You know, they can stay on right up until whenever they want. But these gas engineers, you know, to then change their scope into renewables, it's a big change at that time in their life when they're due to retire. So what we are seeing is the need to educate more. If that makes sense, just kind of concentrate on that. That's why we are very much wanting to be involved. I know we are a small training centre, a small business. This is why we want to try and harness school-age children to let them know, make them more aware that this industry's out there. There is a career to be had. You know, there's skills to learn and develop that can help them in other career paths. You know, like what you say, there's no wrong path. If they do choose to do something in gas or renewable, it does lead into other avenues as well.
And I think that's the important thing for us, because DYW was part of the COP26 initiative, and what was born out of that is we decided to promote climate heroes, so climate heroes within industry and sector, and some of the things that you were touching on is to support educational bodies, to support schools, to support young people, understand a little bit more about what we can all do collectively together towards the move to net zero. And I guess, Karim, you've got this in your job title now, because it could probably be the previous big bad gas board, if you like, but now you're trying to take that responsible, sustainable move towards net zero. So fundamentally, where do you see that going, and what's the part that you play in it?
For me, it's kind of twofold. So we do the community road shows, big part of education, but touching on what Joe said, you know, we've got 6,500 engineers, and these are engineers that are trained to fix gas boilers and Merco, and so it's changing that mindset, and it's difficult when you're used to that one product, if that makes sense, to say this is the future. A lot of people, if they don't know about it, change isn't always seen as a good thing. If they're not comfortable talking about the product itself, that could be another issue. I think with the schools, going back to what Joe said earlier on as well, is you had the gas board, which was us, but then you had Scottish Power done electrics, whereas we're getting into schools now to say we've got 5 or 6 different apprenticeships that are technical roles. We've got apprenticeships that are graduate apprenticeships, or you can come into the contact centres that we've got. It's letting them see the different opportunities. I do agree. Obviously, we were at that event last week, Scott, and it was groups of 12 and 13-year-olds. I was genuinely, we were on the judging panel, I was bowled over at how clued up they were, talking about renewable, sustainability, looking at net zero. It felt like felt as if they were just adults, like doing a presentation. But in the grand scheme of what me and you do when we're going to the schools, probably a lot of people resonate with gas. So you talk about renewables, or you show them the EV charger, the amount of times folk think it's a speaker because they just see the thing. I'm like, no, think again. Show them the EV charger. If you're looking at the heat pump, they don't know about it. I don't even think widely, when you look at TV now, that it's documented as well as what it could be, or publicised as well as what it could be.
And I think that's the thing, Joe. You've probably missed this little bit of an event that Karim and I attended, but it was quite inspirational, wasn't it? So 11 teams entered a competition to work with industry, come up with a solution to a problem. It could be a project, whatever. But these were all young people that were all interested in STEM. They were all interested in potentially seeking a career that might be working for, you know, an industry or a sector like yours, but to try and solve real world problems by coming up with sustainable answers for them. So it was good. So that there is, I guess, pockets of good stuff happening in schools, and there is some young people that are taking that kind of more responsible approach to maybe moving towards net zero and trying to be the answer to the problems of the future.
You look at the group in that hall, you couldn't, obviously we had to pick a winner on the day, or there was 2 awards given out. Any one of those schools deserved to. I think it was amazing that, you know, they were talking to groups of young people that openly said when they started with STEM, they didn't talk to each other in school, but they've now forged a friendship, which I think is really good. They mentioned stuff like mental health, social media being, and I thought this is probably, me and you will be the same. Obviously, Joe and I are only 30, as you know, Scott, but when we grew up, we were the last generation that didn't have, so I love, my childhood was my childhood.
Absolutely.
Social media isn't always a positive thing, and I do feel kind of, not sorry, but I do feel bad for that generation now, because you can't switch
They're living
off.
their lives in front of like social media
I mean,
cameras.
you look at that,
spotlight.
Groups of young people that are saying they can identify that as being an issue, but I think when you looked at each of the different skills that the schools presented as when there was a number of different projects, I think for me it was their faces, they were just so passionate about, I hope I get this right, working well as a team. I think any of them would have been deserved winners. Obviously there was only one, but I don't remember that when we were at school. There was no STEM of it, there was no nothing like this to bring the young people in to say, right, this is the future if you want to do it. That's how I think it's, again, part of what DYW do. That's something I'm really passionate about, is when you think you've got kids, I've got my nephews and my nieces, I want them to have the best opportunity. So I want them to look back when they leave school, whatever they decide to do, whether it's going on to university, becoming a doctor, whatever, or joining Scottish Gas, or joining an energy centre, and that's where they start their career. It's just letting them see the options that are there, which I don't remember. I know you were sort of talking about careers fairs. I don't remember having that at school. Having said that, I wasn't at school a lot in 5th year, so maybe they're there at that point. I just don't remember them.
You don't remember seeing them. And I think that's fundamentally where our paths have crossed quite a lot recently. It's why DYW exists, because we don't focus in any one sector as much as we've got 2 businesses in front of us here that are focusing on gas, renewables, energy, that type of sector. For us, it's no one sector as a focus. But taking it back to that event was for second years, and that's kind of where we see a lot of our events focus taking place, because those second year pupils are needing to think about at a really young age, early age, when you think back of it. For us, we probably didn't even give it any consideration, but now the subjects that they take in second year is so important. So when we do a lot of our DYW events, and hence the reason I'm sure I've battered on your doors and invited you along to quite a few of them now, we're trying to do that to inspire the young people to think about careers and jobs that they might consider doing, and that's pretty much why DYW exists.
That's a credit to you, to Rose, to Anna, Rebecca, like the work that you do, and you see this much bigger than what Joe and I do, because we come along as the stallholders. But I think at the STEM events you've got 300-400 young people. I always say, see if there's only 2 or 3 that come back saying, I want a job becoming a gas engineer. You've won a watch. We don't need 400 people saying, oh, British Gas is the best company ever. It's not. It's just letting them see there's opportunities, and you see that the kind of light flick in their eyes, if that makes sense, is saying, oh, hold on, that light bulb moment, this might be something that I want to do, but I didn't realise I had it. But if you weren't there to create that, the young people wouldn't have it.
Yeah. And I think just, Joe, for you, it's probably double-handed, isn't it? Because you've actually got a daughter at one of the schools that we actually cover. So, you know, for you, giving back to maybe a careers fair, you can maybe put yourself in two hands as maybe that employer, the trainer, the assessor, but then obviously the parent as well. So, what do you think about careers events and
Oh, yeah, they're very important because I think what it comes down to as well is what they're aware of, what career paths they can choose. Because if they're in around people that are possibly kind of in the one sector, maybe they've got parents that are maybe teachers, they've got parents that are maybe gas engineers, they've got parents that maybe work in shops or work in other industries or whatever, they might not be aware of the actual vast array of careers that are out there. So it's important to let them know that even although there's companies out there that they might be aware of, they don't realise there's multiple roles. So we'll take NHS for a start. You know, they just think doctors and nurses,
yeah,
porters, maybe. They don't realise about all the different careers that are within that one band of
and not
maybe just the
that.
NHS, you know.
It's the UK's biggest employer as well in terms of like physical numbers of people
Yep.
across the board
Yep.
as well.
So it's important to let them know that in every industry there's a vast array of careers. You don't need to be a gas engineer to be in the gas industry and things like that.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a doctor or a nurse if you want to go into the NHS. You know, it's awareness, just to make them aware.
And I think that's the inspirational piece that we are trying to do. So I know Andy and you know the team from Gas Certification Company Ltd had reached out to us to try and work a bit of a partnership agreement with 4 local schools, and obviously over the last sort of year we've taken that on a journey, but the very much the motivation behind probably the want to do that is give something back to the community, but actually inspire the young people. So we did an event round about Gas Safety Week in September last year, which was amazing for 4 schools. So St John Ogilvie, Hamilton Grammar, Calderside Academy and Duncan Rigg Secondary all got to get an opportunity to come along to the workshop for the day. So tell us about that, Joe. What did the centre get out of it and why did you come up with that concept?
Yeah, it was more when I was thinking about gas safety awareness, you know, that when I thought about myself growing up as well, we had a gas fire. We didn't have central heating. There, I'm showing my age again. We didn't have central heating. We had a gas fire in the living room and we had a Calor gas fire for the bathroom and a wee electric one in the top landing. So obviously at that age, unbeknownst to me, there's certain things that you need to do when you're running gas appliances that we weren't aware of. You know, we're in the bathroom with a Calor gas fire going, you know, in the bath, you know, with all the heat and steam. So that's dangerous, you know. So when I think now what I know, when I think back, I'm like, oh goodness, we could have, you know, been made ill or God forbid something worse. And it's just the awareness of, you know, if you're using gas products, what you need to be careful with, how you need to ventilate and how you use it properly. So when we thought about Gas Safety Week, I thought to myself, this is a great opportunity to help raise awareness for the general public. So for that week, we didn't book any courses and we had the centre open to the general public. And then that's when we reached out to yourselves to say, look, we would really like to get awareness out to the schools as well. Just that kind of thought process of, I remember years ago reading a story about a child watching an advert for carbon monoxide. And it was this child that highlighted to her parents. So that fire in that advert looks like our fire and they're saying that's unsafe. You know, so it was a child that picked up from that advert, just that one advert. And I thought this would be great if we could do something that could raise awareness about gas safety, carbon monoxide, how to avoid it, even what the symptoms of carbon monoxide are and how gas burns and what it needs to burn. That's the kind of first stepping stone. And then again, it makes kids aware of actually, you know, there's a career here as well. There's career paths to go down that route, because when I was at school, I didn't know about gas engineers. I didn't know boilers had to be fixed and maintained.
And I think that's the most important thing, because I guess your motivation to start that process originally was to spread the word about gas safety. But then we were almost able to flip that into potential, let's inspire careers here as well, because we got 4 groups of between 10 and 15 young people from each school to come along that actually were potentially interested to be gas engineers. And you put on loads of workshops and gave them lots of practical stuff to do and learn. And you then had me in kittens at one point because you were holding
I was going to say it's the fire.
Yeah.
When you bring the flames out, isn't it?
Yeah. So holding the burner, because then once the kids are doing that in a classroom environment, that's when the kind of fear comes on.
Yeah.
But it was a great day, and I think hopefully we'll be repeating that again with this year coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely are. Yeah, we're going to reach out again, and we'll get hopefully more schools coming through the doors. Maybe go down that way.
And then I think obviously for yourself, Karim, thinking back to when you and I first started talking about where we could maybe take that partnership with DYW, part of the motivation for maybe doing that was actually to say British Gas are going to be taking on young people apprentices in the area, and that's something that within the gas engineering field hadn't really been happening recently. Is that right?
Yeah. So our commitment's to recruit 3,500 apprentices before the end of 2030. Which is a big thing. I think that there's not been a massive employment drive for engineers. I think there was at one point, and then maybe just after when you qualified, I think that'd be the last day. We then started taking on what was classed as adult trainees. So us going back to where we were 20, 25 years ago is to say, look, we can take that young person out of school, give them the right training. If you leave school and go somewhere else and then like another gas company then come to us, your safety it's not fair on them because they think they're being safe, but it might not be the same standards that we're at. So it's not the individual's fault, whereas if you take somebody out of school, give them that apprenticeship, give them that sense of responsibility. So now we're speaking to them to say, day one, you get your first, I don't know what it was like when you took your apprenticeship, it's like day one now they get the van. You ever had that? I don't know if you, I was going to say, this is us saying, we treat you like an adult, you need
day one.
For day one, you're coming into this business, we'll give you the right training,
providing
give you
you
the
get
support.
a driver's licence, of course.
Obviously, yeah, you would definitely need a driver's licence, but give them that support and let them see the different opportunities that are going to be there. I think that's where I look at where I was like growing up. We didn't come for money. We weren't brought up in a particularly affluent area. Struggled to make ends meet. But my mum will always say to me, "You're not any better than the person that was brought up next door to you." She's absolutely right. I'm not. It's just my path of my career's taking a different way. And for me, it's just when you're going out to these schools and you could be speaking to young people that maybe don't know what they want to do in the future or they don't think they can achieve, it's working to say, no, you can if you want to do X, Y, and Z. It's achievable. So that's why I really enjoy doing them.
Yeah, and I think that's where we ended up quite recently, almost replicating that blueprint of doing a bit of a project with schools and young people. And then we managed to do this at the Uddingston Centre for British Gas pretty recently. So
I had no idea you'd done that, but Scott never told me you'd done that. So, do you were saying it there? I'm sure we did something after. You were the end of November.
Yeah, no, these guys were the groundbreakers. They did it first. So yeah, I think we were doing it's something called Bothwell Futures, and it was an employability support project. So 2 schools we were supporting, so Holy Cross in Hamilton and Uddingston Grammar, and Karim kind of got behind this project and actually opened up the centre one day to both schools. Initially we were going to support just the 20 young people from each school that were part of the Bothwell Futures project, but we decided because Karim was getting more than just the heating engineers and the other departments together. He was, we would get other young people that were maybe interested within the sector together, and we ended up hosting a bigger day. So, Karim, do you want to just tell us a little bit about why you did that?
I thought we've got the opportunity with the space that's in Uddingston now. I also wanted to do something slightly different. When you're doing the careers fairs and you've got the pop-up stand behind you, which is great, it was more about interacting, because I'm thinking, what would I be like at that age? And I didn't. I got easily distracted. So we did have 6 different stalls set up. So we had a boiler repair bay where they were fitting pipe work. Had the boiler set up. So the 2 engineers for the next set of events are putting an actual kind of bay set up as a kitchen in the office. And they'll put different faults on boilers so that the young people can interact. We had the net zero bay, showing them the heat pumps, the benefits. We had recruitment, speaking to them about the salaries, the training, the different apprenticeships, learning and development. Probably similar to me and you, is and just saying to them, you might be in school thinking you want to do this, but this is how we ended up doing our jobs now. I really like, there was one we did with the contact centre, whereas we played the call and we just stopped it halfway through and said, right, how would you deal with that customer? But this was my way of trying to say to them, I didn't think there would be every single pupil would say, I work with Scottish Gas, but my way of saying was every one of you has got to have a difficult conversation throughout your life. It doesn't need to be on the phone, but I just want to see how you would react to it. We did probably do more on safety this time, as in we'd have the safety assurance team there, but we had the vans parked out the front as well. So again, subconsciously, we had the young people going out into the vans, but you'd have a smart metering van that was stocked differently to a service and repair van. We'd be talking about safety, so why does the front seat need to be clear? Like biking in, I'll put a part in there, and it was just getting them to answer as opposed to me standing up and doing death by PowerPoint. Yeah. We had these quick 20-minute stall sessions, and at the end of it, we said, you've got 20 minutes now to go back to the stall that you actually want to go back to, and that was their way. Again, you're thinking about the confidence that they've got at that age. Would they do Q&As in? Would they want to hold their hand up? Whereas they might go back to that stall where Billy and Paul were fixing central heating. They probably had quite a few young people go back, but it was constant because they were just sitting like this to ask a question to say, how can we do that? Or we had probably 3 or 4 that we'd done a pipe work.
The hands-on stuff was
the hands-on stuff. They kept going back to it.
Gave them an opportunity, and then we started racing it against the clock, and it became a bit competitive as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a really good day, and then on the back of that, obviously you've kindly agreed to post that out to the schools across Lanarkshire and Eastern Bartonshire. So we've got a few events booked in May and June where we'll do the same. But I think that was probably similar to you with the event you done in September. We didn't know what we were walking into, so there was no right or wrong. I was just like, get through the day, then we'll look and think, right, maybe we could tweak for the next event. Maybe we would switch this stand and put electrical services in now and have more interactive. I definitely think, I don't know if you'd be the same, I think they were more involved. See, because they had to get involved, they were switched on rather than sitting back and us talking at them. I think that the more type of interactive base that we have, the better. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well.
And I think the vans in the car park became a bit of a nugget, because you've mentioned it there before we've even got to it. The fact that the vans were out in the car park, and you're saying that a young person can be an apprentice and get the keys to a van if they've passed their test from day one, if they're actually fortunate enough to already have their licence. That's amazing, because the doors were opened, the young people jumped in, they started putting on the radio, tooting the horn, playing with the tools, everything that you want them to do, because perhaps they'd maybe started off the day a little bit reserved and so on, but as soon as you gave them that type of thing, they were away with it. So that was amazing to see, because that's helped with the development in their communication skills. And potentially the most important thing is, can I visualise myself being part of this business and being a gas heating engineer, potentially working out in the field within 2 years, which was obviously amazing to see as well. So just thinking about where we maybe take this at a DYW partnership next for both of your businesses. What are you thinking and hoping for the future? What should we be doing next, do you think, Jo?
I think you've got a good process just now. You know, I think we need to harness it as the industry changes, which is very much what you are doing. You are recognising where the skills gaps are, where the need for certain awareness, especially in the STEM events that you've been doing as well, allowing the children that information to to say that, you know, there's all these different options. We have got these events, you know, come and have a look, and if it helps, it helps, like what Karim touched on, you know, if it just helps one child or one teenager decide, or kind of opens their eyes to a career path, it's certainly worth it in the end.
Obviously, thinking about if you go back 10 years ago, there wasn't really air source heat pumps and EV chargers and so on. So you guys are getting behind that technology and training the field effectively. Do you think there's going to be more of that? And do you think industry's going to be getting behind any one particular upcoming fuel source? What are you thinking?
It's a constant debate right now, because you've got hydrogen, then you've got your air source heat pumps, like you say. Everybody's kind of concentrating on the air source heat pumps, whereas you've got ground source heat pumps as well. Then you've got your solar PV and your wind turbines and things like this, you know. But what made me aware of, now, I hadn't really heard of air source heat pumps until I started in the training centre.
Yeah.
You know, being a gas engineer, I was just very much focused on gas.
Yeah.
I was aware, obviously, of renewables like solar and things like that, but I only learnt about air source heat pumps within the past 3 years. But actually looking into them and researching, the air source heat pump was created back in the 1800s.
Really?
Yeah. And it's only just now that it's actually getting, you know, put into play, because we're in this climate crisis and we have to actually do something about it. But they've been around for well over 100 years.
There you go.
know,
Every
so
day's a school day.
this is
Never knew
it.
that.
So I mean, that blew my mind as well, and when I found out about it, because I just one of those days where I thought to myself, who invented this? I'm going to look this up. Back in, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was like 1861 or something, round about that kind of time scale, where somebody had developed an air source heat pump, you know, and manufactured it. So to now get into the 2020s, you know, and it's now just becoming prominent. I think the kind of first air source heat pumps installed in this country was within the past 20 years. But again, wasn't talked about, wasn't advertised, people weren't made aware of it. But now, because of where we are at, and the government's trying to move away from natural gas into either hydrogen or the air source heat pumps, that's why it's become more prevalent now. You know, that everybody's talking about it and everybody's having that decision of, do you want a new gas boiler or do you want to go down the route of an air source heat pump? There's still that debate over, are we going to get hydrogen? Are we not? Are we going to, if I need a new boiler, should I get one that's going to be hydrogen compatible? Or should I then go down the route of the air source heat pumps?
And
So
what do you think's holding it back just now? Is it safety? Is it cost? Is it industry? What's holding it back just now?
I think there's a number of issues on each side. So when you look at hydrogen, it's the infrastructure. Have we got the infrastructure to supply hydrogen to the houses and the homes and the buildings that we want to supply it to? And the answer right now is no. It's the same with the electrical chargers. Lots of electric vehicles out in the roads, lots of electrical charging points, but again, depending where you are geographically, the infrastructure's not that great either.
Yeah.
It's great if you're sticking to motorways and things, you know, and then you've got your I've not got an electric car, so you know, you've got your high voltage ones, you've got your low voltage ones that can take hours to charge. Are you going to sit in a service station for a couple of hours while it charges? Is there going to be a queue while it charges and things like this? And then there's a whole debate of nuclear power over other sources as well. I mean, just south of Carlisle, we have got a big biomass plant there that is creating energy that way. But then there is still the debate over nuclear energy, so it's still very much
up in the air.
And from what I read from it, I mean, obviously there's industry experts out there in hydrogen and all the others that will tell me one way or another, but from my perception of each of the industries, is there still that uncertainty of, are we fully going to go this way or are we fully going to go that way? Right, let's just let people kind of decide for themselves right now, and we'll see where the biggest demand is, if that makes sense, you know. But it's I wouldn't be able to make a decision right now either. If I was told, right, you can't get a gas boiler, do you want hydrogen or an air source heat pump? I would be like, I don't know what's going to work better. So again, it's very much, we need the government to harness it more, create more awareness, more education on the usage as well, because again, air source heat pumps, you hear all this bad press because people aren't using them correctly because they haven't been educated, or the whole system hasn't been designed correctly. So when it's been installed, it's not working to the efficiency that it should be.
Depending on the temperature and so on, yeah.
And also, you don't use it like a gas boiler. It gets used completely different. So if you're used to boosting your heating, if you go in, it's a bit cold, I'm going to boost my heating for an hour, that's all right for gas, but for an air source heat pump, that's going to triple your electricity bill.
Straight away.
So this is why you hear in the news that people are getting, my electricity bill came in at £700 just for this month. The air source heat pump's supposed to be energy efficient and renewable. It's supposed to help the bills and things like that. But yeah, it's coming down to the education and the appropriate designs and installation of the things as well.
I would echo what you're saying. I think it's not the myth busting, it's just about educating people. So whilst we get around, so I'll go through the air source heat pump. We've got the videos where we run them now. So at the end of every install, we film it, because a big myth is they look at that bit of machinery and think there must be some amount of noise comes off a heat pump. There's nothing.
It's
We've had to literally
Yeah.
put a ribbon on it so you see the ribbon blown up, so you can say, right, that's actually working, because people are like, no, it's
Is
just
that
it's switched
actually on?
off.
Yeah.
And I think the mentality, Joe's right, is in when you're describing about touching the radiator, and if you go in and it's too warm and you want to stick your clothes over it and you're like, oh, you don't, it is still hot with a heat pump.
Yeah.
It's consistent, but it's hard if you don't know or you're not used to it. Similar with the EV, so I've had that car 2 years. I'm definitely an advocate of it now. I wasn't at the very start though, because you're right, you hadn't thought about where do I go for a charge. Obviously the range changes with the type of climate you're in or the weather, so it drops in the winter. You need to factor in what type of charging you're going to, all the extras if you're going to.
What kind of driving you're doing, when motorway driving?
Yeah,
or,
that affects it. So the likes of going to Aberdeen and your car's 2.5 hours and mine's probably going to be 3.5, because I need to then factor
Plan your
in,
journey.
I need to stop in Forfar and get a quick charge again just to make sure. But then looking at it now, I can get to Aberdeen on a drive, get to a decent charger, like the Ionity, it's 350 kilowatts, so I can have a McDonald's for my lunch, the car's fully charged to go back down the road within minutes. But you're right, see, until you get that education piece, I think when you look at where younger people are today, so my youngest niece, 7, so she's been 5 when I got the car. Her brother-in-law texts me saying she's just kicked off because she's saying my car's dead noisy now, but she's got a diesel car. But she's now, you think of somebody that young, 5 and 6, it's like, oh, my uncle's car doesn't make a noise. And you say, oh, it's an electric, but then she's went home to her mum and dad and said, your car's, it's not this car's, it's a diesel car, there's nothing wrong with it. But
it's just
that
a
shows you
noisier,
at that young age
impact.
that they can start to resonate, oh, that's the difference between a diesel or a petrol car as opposed to an electric car. But I think a big part of what Joe said, right, is just trying to get that point across, say this is where we need to be. We have had air source heat pumps installed. We over plan it so that if you think of fitting a gas central heating system, it could take 1 engineer a day. With a heat pump, it's 5 engineers on site for a week. So we've overdone it to make sure that everything, and it is purely so that nothing will come back on us as a business, for the customer as well, and for the engineer to make sure that they've got the right service. We'll then follow it up. But a lot of other companies don't do that, and it's a shame, because when you hear, we do a roadshow and they'll say, oh, my neighbour got a heat pump and doesn't work, and you say, was it us that installed it? And they'll say no, and I thought, well, I can't really
That's not
answer
a good
it.
starting point.
I can't answer it because it's not been us that's installed it, but it goes back to probably a century ago. Everything to me, all right, we've got social media, but a big part is word of mouth. So if your neighbours had a heat pump installed and it doesn't work, subconsciously the two of you are going back and, well, I'm not getting that done because Scott said, aye, but it's not your fault. It's just, I think that's how the human mind
nature,
works.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the most important thing, because we're trying to rein this in, for young people, because all of that noise about, you know, industry and air source heat pumps and so on, it's all kind of out there. But, you know, you've started your journeys both around 25, 26 years ago, and you're still employed, and the industry is moving at quite a fast pace. Thinking about a young person that's maybe that decision where they're, should I stay on at school? Should I take an apprenticeship? Should I go to university? Is this industry still going to be employing people in the next 25 years without them even needing to worry about needing to look elsewhere? What
Absolutely.
do you think?
100%. I genuinely do. I just think my advice would be buckle up, because it's going to change. It's like, you know, net zero's not in the future. Net zero's already here. Yeah. It just means that next generation of apprenticeships will begin through the net zero phase as opposed to engineers went through the gas boiler phase. Absolutely think it will be there. I still think gas will still be there as well for the next generation. I think, but to have that net zero, I'd be confident to say it will be there. And the opportunities when you do come into this industry, as in like the energy sectors and companies this size, you've got so many different opportunities to where me and Joe started to where we are now. We probably, if you said to me 26 years ago, I didn't even want to be there past 3 weeks, if I'm honest with you, and if I've lasted 26 years, but it's probably trying to sell it to them to say there is a career. For me, when I'm speaking to younger people, it's talking to them about, if you want to come in, I don't think that if you come in as a smart engineer, smart metering, for example, it's not to say you'll be doing smart meters for 40 years. You can come into the business, 3 or 4 years down the line. So effectively, that young person's in their early 20s, the company could turn around and say, right, we're going to upskill you now to become an electrician or to fit heat pumps. So I still think our industry will be there. I think the opportunities are going to be there. It's just different opportunities to what, like Joe would have had as an apprentice coming in. I think it'll be geared towards net zero. And
it's probably still moving at a faster pace as well, as technology and things change as well. And then obviously from your point of view, Joe, this is kind of why your centre exists, because you are actually training industry. You are at the forefront of like new technology and being able to like train that out so that engineers and so on are effectively upskilling. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So when you think about gas appliances, there's been an evolution of gas appliances from a very basic boiler from about 50 years ago, which has got a burner tray, a gas valve, and a couple of thermostats.
Yeah.
You know, and it's developed right up until these high efficiency condensing gas boilers. Now we're transitioning into renewables. So the industry is there. It's just we are getting more energy efficient, more climate aware, and we're developing the boilers, we're developing the heat engines, so to speak, so that they are going with the times. That makes sense.
And I think that's the most amazing thing when you get to see the centre at Gas Certification Company. It's got like a snapshot in time for all of these different models and units that the engineers need to be trained on. But obviously that's so that they're ready and able to cope with, you know, like call outs and still be able to serve and get their ticket. Because, you know, like I know, thinking back to just childhood, like I grew up in a home that had the blow air central heating system. And like my mum absolutely loved it. So when she had an opportunity to take that out and get a gas boiler, she went, no, I kind of love that instant heat. And, you know, there's a new modern kind of like energy efficient combi version of that. But you actually see the original version back in the centre as well, which is a bit amazing to see. So it just shows you that, you know, if you go back 20, 30 years, 40 years, it's like changed fundamentally, and it's going to keep changing.
See, have you ever been to Summerlee, either of you?
Oh, yeah.
So see that Leroy village, that Leroy cottages? That to me, I remember I used to take engineers there for a team brief to say, look at where we're at. If I take my niece, the last house was the house we grew up, well, not me and Joe grew up in the same house, but the 80s house, so. But my niece is like, what is that? What's in the back of the TV? And I was like, that is the TV. It's just, it's had the big back on it. But that generation, when you look at even some as basic, not talking about gas seat central heating or anything, but look at the TV or look at the phones that we had before. Then it got to like having, rather than the landlines, it was a landline, but you had the cordless to where we're at now, where everything's like on your mobile. That's only been the past 30, 40 years when you look at how much has changed. So that's why I think, look at this 40 years that we've been in. the next 40 will be the exact same. The next generation will be saying, God, this is where we started, where this was the type of phone. I don't know what it'll be like in 40 years, but this will be classed as ancient, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So again, for you, Joe, I guess you're confident that you're still going to be training industry and moving at pace to make sure you guys keep evolving for the next 40 years for young people and so
I would
on.
hope so, if I'm here in 40 years. But yeah, I would hope so, yeah. It is, it's a ever-evolving kind of industry, so we need to go with the times as well, just to make sure that we're there to oversee and make sure that we are training the engineers up to the current standards and they're working safely as well, because safety is a big aspect, as well as awareness of what's out there.
Well, guys, that's been an amazing session. Thanks very much for contributing to the very first Career Brights from DYW. You've both been amazing first guests as part of this show, and I hope everyone can tune in for episode 2, which will be coming very soon from a company called Briggs & Masco, who'll be talking about the flat roofing sector, which will be amazing. But if you can obviously follow us in socials, that would be fantastic, everyone.
thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.